Robin Miller, a host of Miller Chat. My guest today is Bettina Zumdick. She is the founder, owner, teacher of the Culinary Medicine School and author, and first and foremost, a human being. Welcome back, Bettina.
Thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You've been on two other shows in the past, I believe one on liver health and one on the brain.
I think you're right. Yes.
Wow. And it's great that we can do a Zoom.
Yes, now we can show some pictures and we can look at it perhaps in a little bit different way.
Of course. So I know you have a PowerPoint presentation on authentic food. So why don't we shoot away? Go ahead. I give the floor to you.
Thanks. All right. So let's look at foods that are, good for our bodies, that keep us in good shape, that are helpful in many, many ways. So let's start with looking at whole grains. And I'm looking mostly at plant foods today. And before I look at whole grains more in detail, I would like to talk a little bit about plant foods in the way that they are light foods, if you will. They are able to utilize light for their growth process. And, plants are with almost impossible efficiency absorbing light. Just like a bumblebee, according to scientific aerodynamics, should not be able to fly. I mean, it should be near impossible for plants to utilize the photons of light because as the photons are making their way to the photosynthetic interior of the plant, it should collide with many other particles. But the plants put the photon in a state of something like quantum superposition, meaning it multiplies the photon in billions of parts or possibilities so that every possible path is covered and no possibility that collides with other particles within the plant is given any further consideration. So when one of these possibilities of the light photon reaches the core without any mishap, then the only that possibility remains or is noted, and all the other possibilities basically disappear. And so the plant patiently refuses to take note of these things that stand in its way, but only concentrating on what, where the success path is, and singing, if you wish, the imperative of all life, let there be light. And,
Mhm.
from that perspective, so many times we have so many difficulties in our lives, so many I can't do this because, and I can't do this, and I can't, so much I can't, and it doesn't, but if we were to eat a little bit more plant food that is whole, unprocessed, and whole grains in a way are crystallized sunlight, if you will. And so they communicate with us on a cellular, in our cellular structure, this kind of command: find the best way. You will find the solution. You will make your life work out. And in that sense, I think it is really wonderful to eat whole plant food, and whole grains are one of them. And here's just a picture of some plants. Like here is this, I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Mhm. Yes.
So the millet kernels are here, and this is how millet grows. That's a grain that grows here in the north very easily. Of course, short grain brown rice, which is on the lower left corner here, that also grows here in the northern areas, including in Massachusetts and Vermont. Long grain brown rice is a variety of rice, of course, that grows more in southern areas. This is spelt, which is a wheat variety, more an ancient wheat variety. Of course, here's wild rice. The Native American Indians were harvesting that here in Canada. It's not actually in the rice family, but it's very nutritious and it cooks and, in the body gives us energy like rice or other grains. And up here on the top, we have buckwheat. Buckwheat is not in the wheat family. It's not even, again, it's not in the grain family, just like wild rice is actually an aquatic grass. Buckwheat is in the rhubarb family, but also it cooks. You can use it like a grain. It has a similar effect in the body, and it also grows in a northern climate. So there's quite a few grains here, except the long grain brown rice, that are appropriate for growing and eating in a northern climate where we are. Oops, I went the wrong way.
I didn't
So,
know there was long grain and short grain rice.
yeah, so there is actually long grain, medium grain, and short grain brown rice. They are different varieties and they grow in different climate zones. I mean, the shorter varieties more in the north and longer like basmati, basmati, jasmine rice. They are all hot climate varieties. Just like, corn, and here I've listed some whole grains like corn has many different varieties, and I think most Americans know that. There's sugar corn, there is butter corn, there is, I don't know, popcorn. So many different varieties, but corn is, of course, a whole grain and very delicious. So brown rice, another whole grain. Barley is very good also for especially liver trouble. Quinoa, if somebody has digestive issues, it's really easy to digest and it's high in protein. Oats are very warming in the winter. Wheat, well, wheat is most often used for bread, making bread or other, pastries. And then the ancient varieties of wheat, which are called spelt, some of them are
Oh,
farro, einkorn, kamut. Those are more ancient varieties that are less hybridized and, not GMO modified. And rye, most often also used in flour as bread. Wild
mhm.
rice, I showed you. Millet, I showed you. Buckwheat. So there's, quite a number of different kinds of grains that can be very useful. And this, of course, is a cooked brown rice. I love brown rice, so
Yes, very good. Yes.
then beans is another big category that I think we should consider having on a regular basis because of their protein content. So whole grains, the main factor of whole grains, of course, is the complex carbohydrates, but many antioxidants that really keep the body in good shape. But beans primarily benefit us in terms of the protein. So this beans can be eaten instead of an animal protein if you don't wish to eat animal protein, or if you just sometimes wish to have a variety, then using beans, the less fatty beans, like on the right side, lentils, mung beans, turtle beans, and so lentils, I think most people know, the little, like here, the green lentils, red lentils. I think these are black beluga whale lentils. So lentils, very small. Mung beans are these green ones right here, or right here, little green beans. Turtle beans, of course, the black, smaller beans that are oftentimes used in Mexican foods. Azuki beans, these smaller red beans up here. Navy beans, maybe something like these.
Oh,
So, these are easier to digest for many people. The higher fat beans, sometimes a little bit harder to digest, like kidney beans or the red beans. the big red beans, cannellini beans, the big white beans, pinto beans, like here. These are like a variety of, well, they are maybe cranberry beans, chickpeas. Let me see. There's chickpeas over here. Um, Great Northern beans are a variety of white beans that are in size between the small white navy and the big white cannellini beans. But so, there are many other beans that I haven't even
Mhm.
listed here. But beans also high in fiber, and helping to lower the cholesterol, binding with excess cholesterol in the gut, moving that out.
Mm.
um, the important thing is, if you're buying plain beans already cooked in a can, then that's fine. But if you're buying dry beans, soaking them, discarding the soaking water, and then cooking them slowly until they are done, so that it makes them more digestible. If you cook them in the soaking water, sometimes that causes also more gas in terms of digestion. And sometimes eating them, or many times, if you are not used to eating beans, then eating them with some fermented food, like with a little bit of sauerkraut, or with olives or something, that can also help in digestion. And then let's look at vegetables. Now, vegetables are really the go-getters in terms of our nutrient content, for antioxidants, vitamins, these micronutrients that build the body. While both grains and beans also have some calcium, some, minerals, but especially leafy greens, for example, have vast amounts of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, many, many minerals that that both the bones and the body needs to help the immune system, to basically help all the functions in the body. And then, of course, leafy greens like, where here we have some broccoli, we have parsley, but it could be kale, it could be Chinese cabbage, it could be lettuce, it could be watercress, it could be mustard greens. I mean, there are so many leafy greens, spinach. Leafy greens also have a vast amount of vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is heat sensitive, so it's best if we don't cook it very long, or we eat them raw. So cooking it less than 2 minutes will preserve the vitamin C, or eating them raw will also preserve the vitamin C. And vitamin C, of course, as everybody knows, boosts our immune system. So
Yes. Well,
eating lots of, leafy greens will be very wonderful. But in terms of energy signature, when we look at how something grows, then we also have to then we can get a sense of what it's good for in the body. Like, leafy greens grow up and out. And by the way, they always consider, when, that the plants of the leaves are actually the heart of the leaves. So the plants put themselves out there, quite vulnerable to us. But so it's growing up and out, and that means also energetically, it's, more important for us for the upper part of the body, especially from heart, lungs, neck, brain, head. So all of this area, because of the way that the plant grows, will be energetically more strengthened, more supported. Of course, that doesn't mean that, the minerals, let's say the calcium in a broccoli, will only go up. No, the calcium, of course, will go also down to the bones of the toes.
mhm.
But but energetically, they really help this upper body, and they help our heart connection also. And I think in our world where, you know, a little bit the sacred is lost and the compassion sometimes gets lost in our, like, we have to, and we need to, and it's all about money, and so sometimes these kind of real connections sort of get lost in our daily lives. But if we eat a little bit more plant foods, especially leafy greens, they also help to open our heart, to
Mhm.
open ourselves to more that real connection from heart to heart. So that's also
Interesting.
very good. And round vegetables like onions, like let's see, here we have the celeriac, which is the root of the celery. We have the root of the red beets, more onion. Let's see, oh, squash. Here's another one. Cabbage. Well, this one is a pointed cabbage, but most cabbage is more round. So round vegetables like cabbage, carrots, onions, also broccoli, these kind of things that have a more rounded structure. They help more the middle part of the body, about where our stomach is. So that middle part. And if you look at a squash here, it's hollow. Well, I mean, here the seeds are in it, but there is a hollow space, so it even has a faint reminder of a stomach
Oh, I didn't
being
think
hollow.
about that.
And so it's very good for stomach, but all the organs in the middle, especially also the spleen, stomach, pancreas, because these organs really are helped by the complex carbohydrates that are predominant in the round vegetables. Like when you cook onions a long time, they become sweet. When you cook squash, it becomes sweet. When you cook other round veggies, cabbage, it becomes sweet. So they help to keep our blood sugar level stable, and they help the middle part. Then the root vegetables, and here we have different colored carrots, we have parsnips, yeah, potatoes are, well, they are not really the actual root, they are a swelling in the root, but real root
Really?
vegetables like like long white radish, the daikon, or burdock or something. Burdock looks like maybe a little bit like this, but longer, like brownish in color and long. But root vegetables that drill into the ground as they are growing, they of course help more stabilizing the lower part of our body, uh, from the intestines down to the toes, basically. And in that sense, when they are strengthening the lower part of our body, they are giving us also more endurance, more strength, more grounding, more stabilizing energy. But also, again, like if we look at a carrot here and we cut a carrot perpendicular to its growth section, and here I have only a small portion of a
Mhm.
carrot, I couldn't find a nice larger one. But if you look at, if we look at this in the center, it looks a little bit almost like the iris in an eye, in our eyes.
Right.
And I think in both the folklore, but also in science, it's well known that the nutrients in carrots are good for the eyes, for night vision. And so we have to look at really how something grows and what, structural pattern there is. And then we can also see what is primarily supported in our body by that growth pattern. So, in that sense, that can be something very useful. So, if we know we have eye trouble, maybe a little bit more carrots.
Mhm.
And again, of course, the nutrients, like let's say carrots are high in vitamin A. The vitamin A will not go only to the eyes or will not go only to the legs, it will be spread evenly. But Generally speaking, also they have, because they drill down as they are growing into the ground, they have this stabilizing, focusing energy for us. Then something that most people are not familiar with.
I'm
Sea
not.
vegetable, right? But sea vegetables, you can find them now as a snack. Oftentimes, the most common snack now are these nori pieces that have been seasoned that you can find in little boxes in the stores as snacks. Very delicious, but sea vegetables, because they are growing in the ocean, they're very high in minerals and can provide us with many of the trace minerals that are oftentimes actually missing in land vegetables because our soils have been so depleted by, a lot of the monoculture, etc. But so a little bit of sea vegetables I would highly recommend, and there are many. I mean, the even the traditional Native American Indians, they traded the ones more in the center of the country. They traded with the tribes on the shores, both on the Pacific and the Atlantic, so that they would get some sea vegetables, and they gave the other ones something else. So but sea vegetables not only mineral content but also iodine, and of course in the western diet oftentimes the salt is now iodized because otherwise people there's not really any iodine sources in our foods anymore. So but sea vegetables have natural iodine, but also they have substances that help to remove radioactive substances from our body as well as heavy metals. So, if you can start with, the nori, which is this one, but there are many different ones. Wakame, adding a tiny bit of this kind of sea vegetable here to a soup. You don't taste it, but it has many benefits. This one is kombu, or sometimes also called kelp. It's good for cooking with beans, making them also more digestible. These ones are highly fishy tasting, so I would be maybe not starting out with them, but these ones are very good to start with. You can find them in
Hmm.
Asian stores, but try to find more natural, not like if they are too vibrantly green, they have probably died. So
What about sushi? That part of this?
yes, sushi nori is usually when you have sushi rolls, the black covering on the outside, that is what nori is. So,
Okay, that's good to know.
yeah. And then let's look at cooking methods, which, I think is another important factor. Lighter cooking methods, more warming cooking methods. Lighter cooking methods like blanching, quick boiling, quick steaming, quick saute or stir fry, which is the same thing. Saute means jump or skip, so it makes the vegetables jump or skip in the pan. Tempura, quick tempura is
Hmm.
really quick in the oil, quick out of the oil. A pressed salad, mixing vegetables that have been cut with salt and pressing them, marinating, quick pickling. Pickling, of course, is fermentation to create the good kind of bacteria for our gut function. These are cooking methods that are good more for spring and summer. We use more of the warming cooking methods, of course, in winter time. Some people use pressure cooking, but long boiling, stewing, long steaming, they can be more warming, or a really long saute, baking, roasting, all of these have really very warming, or broiling, very warming effect, or also long-term pickles or long-term fermentation, which usually contains a lot of salt. Those would be things more often used in the winter time. So I wouldn't like recommend using a lot of baking or roasting for vegetables, especially in the summer. That's really more of a winter style cooking. But going more with these ones during the
Hmm.
spring or summer. But using a variety, because different cooking methods have different effects in the body. Like, for example, steaming. When you steam something, it sits quietly in a steamer basket or whatever contraption you have, and it just sits there and it concentrates the flavor. Blanching, meaning you have a lot of water that is at a full rolling boil, and the vegetables are inserted into the boiling water, and it's sort of like as if you were like in a whirlpool, and you're sitting in the whirlpool and relaxing more and more. Whereas the steaming is concentrating more. So the blanching, and because blanching is cooking in a lot of water, that also helps to melt more stagnations in our watery systems, meaning anything that has to do with liquid, the blood and the blood vessels, the lymph liquid, and of course the urinary function. Whereas, steaming, as I said, it concentrates everything. So when, let's say, you've eaten a lot of sugar, which, makes you easily scattered and not be very focused, then steaming may be very good, because then you can, come together a little bit more, focus a little bit more. So looking at it also from that perspective.
Oh, we have about 2 minutes.
Yes. So let's look at just one last slide here, and that is this one. Another thing that I think is very important is chewing well. Chewing well really absorbs our nutrients more. It provides saliva into our system, which helps also that we will not be overeating as much, keeps the blood sugar level more even. The chewing well helps to lower cholesterol and triglyceride levels, and it also reduces stress hormones and inflammatory markers. So I mean, there are many benefits. And just as a last one, if you wish to contact me, go to Culinary Medicine School. And I have an event coming up, the Earth Day Body, Soul, and Spirit Summit. Check it out on my website, and you can see me there.
Wow. Well, Bettina, you did a thorough job in explaining about the value of the food that we eat and how we cook it and take care of it and how it affects our bodies.
Well, thank you. Thank
And
you.
now that we're going toward post-COVID, whatever that means, we learned the importance of eating well.
It really makes a difference, because whether you had COVID or you didn't, there's always virus and whatever going around that we could catch. But boosting our systems by eating well, and by eating foods that help us to align in such a way that we always see the best possible outcome for our life, I think can be really useful.
Well, thank you. So my guest today was Bettina Zumdick. She is the founder, owner, teacher of the Culinary Medicine School and an author. And thank you very much for coming on my show today.
Thank you, Robin.
Yep. Good night. Good night, everyone.